welcome back to Switched to Linux. Well, we are going to have a look at Ubuntu 18.04 Bionic Beaver today, the well-anticipated. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk through the entire installation process because, and I haven't looked at all this yet, but according to all of the statements so far, this new installer contains some of the things that I would consider as a little bit more intrusive on the privacy. So as we get into our Ubuntu, if you are a person that's concerned with privacy, I'm going to show you all of the 3 ways to turn things off so that Ubuntu is not collecting that data. Not as bad as Windows, absolutely not. But there are 3 specific areas that some people may not it may not be acceptable to collect those. For example, journalists, people who have to deal in privacy. It's not good that Ubuntu does seem to collect some data now. So that's why I want to walk through the installation process of this as well, not just walk through it. So we're going to go ahead and install it on a VirtualBox. Then we're just going to poke around in there a little bit. I'll show you the privacy related stuff, and then just kind of poke around, see how it looks. This has been a release, of course, the LTS releases, which this is the latest LTS in 2 years. These generally are always stable out of the box. There probably is not a ton of reason not to go to Ubuntu 18. If you are considering going to Linux, I would probably recommend it. The Ubuntu base core is very good, and the company behind it is also, likewise, I consider pretty good. So they do a lot of great things. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and boot this guy up. So give me a moment to get the installation going, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so here we are. We've booted into the installation screen. So now we're going to go ahead and push install Ubuntu. Again, I'm doing this on a VirtualBox. My VirtualBox has, I think, 4 processing cores and 6 gigs of RAM. We're going to select the English language, both cases. So we have the normal installation, minimal, install third-party codecs. Notice that we do have this automatically checked, probably because we have the normal installation. It looks like I can't deselect that. So that's interesting. So if I don't want to download updates, I'd probably at this point in time have to make sure this is not connected to the internet. That's a little disconcerting to me. I may not want that to happen. For example, there are some application packages that I know may not be working quite as well as they should, and I may not want them on the system. So that's interesting. We're going to go ahead and let that go. Now, of course, the other thing that is new in here is the normal installation contains all of the basic software. So if you're looking for something and you need it to be an operating system that feels full, it has all the tools, has all the utilities, all things that I talk about, you want to go with the normal installation. The minimal installation simply has a web browser and very basic utilities. The minimal installation is for the person who already knows Linux. They know what they want to use, and it will allow you to just kind of start with almost nothing installed in the system, so you can install all your own packages. It really doesn't matter. Right now we're just going to go ahead and do the normal. But if you already know what you want, I love the fact that they included that. That's a really cool advantage to this new system. So we'll go ahead and hit our continue button now. Okay, so here it's giving me the option to erase the disk. There is another operating system on this disk. It's asking us if we want to erase the disk or something else. There used to be an option to either erase the disk and install Ubuntu or install alongside the current or something else. They've dropped one more option in this installer. I don't care to keep that other distro around, so I'm just going to go ahead and erase the disk and install now. Telling me we're going to go ahead and format the partitions. We pick our time zone. All right. We're going to go ahead and actually I'm going to go ahead and require password to log in on this as well. See if it lets me use that password. All right, so it did not give me that prompt that I was thinking it would. So at this point in time, I'm going to allow this to go through, copy all its files and do that. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of research in there so I can see what's going on this, because all of the documentation I've read up to this point in time said there should be an option in there to select to say if you want to submit data to Ubuntu. I want to see if they reverse their opinion or whatever else. Okay, so the installation is done, and I was looking into that, and apparently what they did is instead of putting it in the installer like they said they were going to do, when we restart this the first time, it should give us a dialog box. So let's go ahead and reboot the system and see what happens. Okay, so here we are. One of the reasons I wanted to not set it to auto login is one of the differences is that it will default to using the it'll default now to using the Xorg instead of the Wayland. Wayland was enabled by default on 17.10, but it had a lot of system performance issues. So if you do need Wayland, you can select it from your login screen just by selecting the gear and clicking on the button down here. But we're going to stay with what the default was. Let's go ahead and log in. This is the first time we're going to log into the system here. Okay, so we are logged in. We get this nice new Ubuntu screen here. So let's go ahead and walk through all this. Here's our system menu. It's telling us where everything is, our clock and calendar, our files, our activities, our launcher, and our apps button down at the bottom. Next. Canonical Live Patch helps keep your computer secure by applying some updates that would normally require restarting. I'm going to, let's see. We're going to go ahead and skip that one for now. Ubuntu can report information that helps developers improve it. This includes things like computer model, what software is installed, and the approximate location you choose. This is based on the location you chose, probably not an IP address. This is that first one that that I am not a big fan of, because there's legitimately people that cannot leak this type of data. Understand, this gives a fingerprint of your computer, which can be dangerous in some privacy-centric occupations. So I'm going to say no, we're not going to do that. But there is no option. I didn't see any option that said don't collect anything. I don't know that they didn't collect that fingerprint and send it already. I have no idea, and that kind of makes me nervous about this, because there was so much hoopla about it. They're saying it's going to be an option in your system, and I didn't see it. I'd kind of like a little bit more clarity on that. Or, I don't know, maybe somebody getting in there and doing some type of video look at that. All right, so here is, you can use software to install these types of apps. So if you need any of these types of apps, it looks like they have Brave Browser in there now. VLC, Skype, Spotify, Discord, GIMP, Minecraft, Android Studio. You know, a variety of Notepad++ is one I've seen more come around lately. You can go ahead and open the software now. We're going to go ahead and close that out. You can see that the apps button is kind of my shoulder arm sitting right on it there. But you can see where the application button is. Now, the first thing I want to do here, if you are of the security privacy-centric folk, you want to come down here and into your settings, and this is going to be one of the places where you're going to want to do a couple little items. There is an option here called Privacy. You see that it says problem reporting is set to automatic. This is because the app port application is installed. You should come down here and turn this off. If you are super paranoid, you want to uninstall the app port application. Okay, so that is now turned off, or it's basically turned to manual. So that is one of the things that you want to do. The other thing is there is an application that is called PopCon, Popularity Contest. So I booted up the terminal by going holding Control, Alt, and pressing T. And what I want to look at is there should be a PopCon configuration file. I just have to remember exactly which folder it's in. You can actually refer to my other videos where I talk about this a whole lot more to see what I'm talking about. So right there, the popularity test, that's the one I want. So I'm going to look at Nano popularity contest. You can see that the participate is set to no. So what this means is that this is This is installed, but it is not activated. This runs on a cron job once a week. It's going to collect all of the applications that is installed and the order that you've used them from the most recently used to the least recently used, and it's going to send those at a cron job to Canonical. The biggest issue with this is that this My Host ID is a unique number that is directly tied back to your machine. This is why this is a problem. So for the average user, this doesn't really mean a lot. It just means they know what applications are being used. If you're not a privacy-centric person, do nothing, because it does legitimately do some degree of help. But if you happen to be a person who it does work in the privacy arena, then you are going to want to run a sudo apt uninstall, and I believe the package is called popcon. Nope. Invalid operation. Oh, duh. I don't know why my brain's not working right. Okay. So that should have went ahead and removed that. The other one, if you're super paranoid, you also want to remove app port. I think it's APPORT, if I remember correctly. That's going to prevent any of the communication back about error reporting. So if you happen to be the privacy-centric people, it doesn't look like that PopCon actually uninstalled. I should have seen something more like this, but we'll go ahead and leave it at that. I do detail that a whole lot more in my other videos about this topic. So that's kind of all you want to do from the privacy standpoint. But that's okay. So let's go ahead and spend some more time in here. If you're new to Ubuntu, here's your wireless. Of course, there's no wireless card on this computer, nor is there a Bluetooth card, Bluetooth chip in here, so we don't expect to see any of those. Here's our beaver in our background. That's the thing that's on our main screen. I want to keep the beaver there because we want to honor the beaver. Honor the beaver. As long as we're not honoring the beepster. Okay. Here's your dock. So this is your dock. This for me is a little bit big. You can, that's the default size. You can actually make it quite small if you want. You can also decide if you want it on the left, the bottom, or the right. So depending on where you would like it to be, you can go ahead and do that. And then you can turn on the auto hide, either turn it on or turn it off. So with it turned off like this is my preferred. I don't like when my docks hide. It's nice because it'll kind of hard hit across the side, but if you keep pushing, you can go underneath it. So that's kind of how the dock works. Here's your notifications, so you can receive or not receive notifications from all these different items. This kind of depends on what you want, what you don't want. So you have that option there. So the search command. So anytime you're searching something on the computer, this will determine what is being searched. You can search the software, a terminal, password keys, calendar, or files. So you can turn on or turn off any of those different items. There's your language, reasons, online accounts. This is actually kind of nice. So if I were to come down here, for example, I have Nextcloud. I can go ahead and log into this, and what this should do is it will give me a mounted folder directly into my Nextcloud. Now, since I have calendaring there, it might integrate into my calendars, but I don't recall that right now. Some versions, it was just that. I mean, it really depends on how you have your Nextcloud instance set up. If you do use Facebook, Microsoft, Google, you can actually implement those. Each one of those will actually do their own separate things. If you click it, it might give you data. No, it looks like it's just giving you information here. You'd have to look up exactly what information is being input there. What these do is these will integrate into the system. Anywhere, for example, I know if you log into Google, it will sync your calendars. It will provide a mapped folder to your document tree. So if you load up your files, then you'll actually see an extra item down here, which is your Google Drive. Very, very convenient if you use a Google Drive, because you can quickly back up, move images on and off of your network like that. So I use that with the Nextcloud install in some instances. So that's some of those. We've already looked at privacy, but let's go ahead and have a look again. Let's look in more detail. Location is turned off by default. Location usage and history is turned on by default. So purging trash, temporary files is turned off. What that's going to do is if you delete something, does it go in the trash can, or does it just delete automatically? Connectivity checking. I don't remember what that one is. Connectivity checking is used to detect connection issues and helps you stay online. If your network communications are being monitored, it could be used to gather technical information about the computer. Right, Kitty? All right. I would actually probably turn that off if you're a privacy-centric person. Let's see. There's our sharing. I think I'd probably have to have some sharing type hardware for that. Here's your sound settings, your power, network. This is where you'd set up a VPN. If you need to do a VPN, you can import from a file. Like if you have a file from an open VPN network, you can actually import a file, or you can just create one. So that's where you do those. And let's see if I can remember. If you want to use like the 1.1.1.1, you'd come in here. Whoa. That's new. I'm used to Linux Mint, or if I drag this, the back window stays the same. You're just hitting the gear on the wired. You want to go over to IPv4, and I believe it's here. You have to double check where exactly you put it. It's either here or it's down here. I forget which one. But this is where you make those adjustments. All right, so here's your devices. Here's my screen resolution. So I could actually bump my screen resolution up right here probably, and it would work. We're just going to go ahead and stick with what I have with the smaller screen here, though. That's going to work. Here's Nightlight. This will adjust your color settings to be softer on the eyes. I actually cannot look at screens with night lighting on. I don't know why, but if I turn that on and the night lighting turns on, the screen's just going to be very difficult for me to read. So. It says it's on. I'm guessing it might go on if I move something. I don't know. Let's see. There's your keyboard, mouse, and touchpad, printers. If I actually simply plug in certain printers, it should automatically show up in here. No installation. Let me go ahead and try that. I'm going to go ahead and plug in a printer real quick. Okay, so I plugged in a Brother network printer. Once that guy configures itself on the network, it actually might show up without any extra work. Most Ubuntu builds will do that. Let me just come back to printers in a second. So removable media, you can, if there's defaults that you want to do, you can actually set it to play a certain video or set a certain application for any particular type of software. The Wacom tablets, there's where your tablet screen is, right there in your settings system, and then here's your color management. All right, let's go ahead and add printer. See if it finds it. All right, that is indeed the printer I added. Click the button. Printers on Linux are a little goofy sometimes. Brother printers usually work. Brother scanners, not so much. I'd be actually curious to see if this scanner, if this new Ubuntu does this. So it says it's actually ready. So let's see. Download printer drivers ready. Ooh, that one usually crashed the system. Let's see if it still crashes the system. This is way more work than I'm used to. Let's apply that. Goes to there. Yeah, I know Linux Mint has zero problem with this printer. In fact, I never even install it. Plug it in, it just automatically goes. Let's see if, let me try that one more time. It says printer's ready. Let's go ahead and boot up LibreOffice real quick. Okay, so our spell check is on. Let's go ahead and let's just do that. We have our synonyms are turned on. There's our print button. Apparently this printer's not going to be working with Ubuntu right now. I'm sure I could get it to work. It's just going to be... it's just kind of giving me some issues with this printer. This is kind of the thing that you find in... it says the printer's added, then it doesn't, then it's not added. Okay, so it says it's ready to go. Printing options... All right, let's go back to LibreOffice. Let's go ahead and try printing that out again. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say, yep, that one ain't working. Says there's one job. We're going to give it a minute. It does take my other computers a minute there to actually get that running. Let's go ahead and poke around what else we have in here. So our applications, we have a variety of games installed. This is why I don't like GNOME. This is just an unorganized mess to me. I like the nice organized menus there. So here we have Solitaire. There's the Amazon button. This, if you want to help support Ubuntu, you can go ahead and click on that and shop on Amazon there. We've already looked at LibreOffice is the latest version. That is 6. It does seem to be working out of the box. Settings shot well, so nothing super out of the ordinary. Here's our software store. So let's go ahead and install something like, let's try Spotify. Just need to enter your password. That's going to go ahead and install that. Let's try Skype as well. All right, so we have Firefox, we have Thunderbird. I'm very happy to see Thunderbird installed. Some Linux distros are going with the new Geary Mail, which is kind of a horrible application. But that is... it's very, very nice to see Thunderbird restored back over here. There's input methods. So yeah, there's really not much else to it. Let's have a look at our system monitor. Of course, it's going to be inaccurate because we're installing software. Maybe we're going to get the system monitor. It's interesting. It's like it loaded underneath something. I have no idea what happened with that. All right, so we are running on 1.7 gigs of memory. Let me close that down, see what that does. This should run about 1.5 gigs, so definitely not a distro for a lower-end computer or one without a lot of RAM. Most of your modern computers now shouldn't have much of a problem running it. But just take note that this does take a much higher amount of RAM. It says Nightlight's on, but I want to turn it off, see what happens there. All right, here's some help. Our software store, writer, rhythm box. And boot up Spotify, boot up Skype, see if they work. I've had issues with Ubuntu Budgie on the beta build where the Skype application wouldn't work. So let's go ahead and see if either of these guys boot up. It does look like it's taking a while for software to actually start. There's Spotify. Okay, and I don't have a Spotify account, so I'm not going to log in. Skype? Are you showing up, Skype? Oh, there's Skype. All right. So it does appear Skype starts. Again, we're not going to log into that. Just so you know, it's an option. It does seem to work. That's good. That one did not work out of the box on Ubuntu Budgie on the beta build. So glad to see that that's now working. Everything else is pretty much what you'd expect. Here's your basic utilities. You have disks, archives, backups. The backup application, this will allow you to back up files in your home directory. It allows you to include or exclude specific folders and files in your system, create backups, whatever else you want to do. So you have those options there. So those are pretty nice. That is about it, really. My overall take, it's not a bad system. I don't like GNOME, so I probably wouldn't use it. There's a lot of little bugs about it that I don't like. It seems slow and encumbering. The workflow is not the workflow that I generally use, and the file manager to me is very slow and very clunky. Those are my primary reasons I don't like using GNOME. But the distro itself, it's not bad. I love the core of Ubuntu. It does seem pretty good. I didn't see any stability issues yet. We've been doing a little bit here. I was not able to get that printer going. Let's look in that printer again. So that says it's processing one job. I don't know what it's processing though. Just like any other printer. Why does like printer software never work? You know, it's like the other thing I'm not seeing on this system is I'm not seeing an ability to just print a test page. It's like they've gotten rid of a lot of the core utility type stuff that you might need to do, like test if my printer is actually working. So that's kind of one of the downsides, and that's the problem of this trend of moving towards these new flashy systems, user-friendly systems, as it were, is that they're dropping core functions that advanced computer users know what they are, how to use them, where to find them, and I can't find those basic things anymore. And that's the type of stuff, it's not just this, but it's any system that tends to move towards this newer, trendier way to go. So let's go ahead and see if that works. Now, on my Linux Mint computer, I do get this printer error shows up, but then the document prints just fine. So I'm just curious if I'm going to see any notice from the printer. But I'm not hearing the printer kick up. So it does appear as though it thinks the printer is attached, but it's not actually attached. And that kind of is a problematic thing, because that means that this system is not going to be as user-friendly as they might like it to be. Of course, try other printers. If you have like an Epson printer, those generally work a little bit better. I hear people say HP works fine, but I don't buy HP products at all. And Canon, don't buy Canon if you're planning on doing Linux. Canon is insane. You can get them to work. I have working Canon printers on my systems, but they are kind of a pain. So be wary of that. The next thing actually I want to try, I want to look at the scan utility. The scanning utility, you generally always need to download for Brother printers. You generally always need to download the drivers for them. So it says no scanners detected. That means it can't find my scanner. So to get the scanner working on this thing, I would certainly have to download the drivers. That's a pretty standard thing for the Brother scanners. The Epson scanners, if I plug in the Epson scanner, it would probably find it in an instant and be ready to go. So that is that. So there is Ubuntu. My final thoughts. If you're looking for a decent system, I'd probably point you towards the Mate version before this version for several reasons. The first is GNOME is not a user-friendly system. It is not going to be as easy for a new Linux user to start out on this particular distro. It used to be okay. When it was Unity, it was different enough, but you could get around some of the differences. With the GNOME version, I feel like it's a lot harder. It's a lot steeper learning curve. And so I kind of see Ubuntu Mate as being a better entry than this the standard Ubuntu build. So that's kind of my take there. It's not bad. It's very stable. Of course, the Ubuntu team does a great job with code stability and all that kind of stuff. So I know the code's going to be rock solid. I like their choices in the software. We have our Thunderbird. We have our latest versions of LibreOffice, Firefox is the latest version. So everything seems to be fine out of the box. There's no serious objections there. I'm a little concerned with the installer, where it does seem as though it's grabbing data, and I don't know if it's collecting all of the data all at once and then sending it or not sending it based on that initial screen, because I'm going to guess that the default's to send if you don't tell it not to. And I'm concerned about that. And I'm concerned about the fact that it does have the app port and the PopCon installed by default. I would prefer the app port on manual. I would certainly prefer that, because a lot of people use Linux for the security and for the privacy, and it's better to not assume that your users are okay sending out data if you're not completely certain, and we're not always completely certain. I wouldn't not use it. I'm not going to say Ubuntu is spyware. It's not. But they are collecting some data about the systems it's installed on, which is a fingerprint. They're collecting the data about the applications people are using. They are collecting a user ID number that is unique to your machine. And they are sending error reports automatically without asking you about it. And those are all problematic things. So those are kind of some balanced thoughts about it. So I hope you enjoyed this video on the Bionic Beaver. Beavers, oh no! So thanks for watching. You can check out the links up above if you want to help support the channel. Check out the Patreon page. Use the Amazon link, which will also be in the description down below. And there's also you can get things like t-shirts, coffee cups, water bottles, things like that at shop.switchtolinux.com. So thanks for watching, and hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.